All right. Man, that's commitment. Walk into Mexico, right? Wow, who would have thought of that? That's just like a whatever it takes attitude. Okay, real quick, before I introduce our next speaker, I want to let you know, yesterday, Dave Kennard was talking about Clearwater. Clearwater, people are like, what's Clearwater? It's Clearwater Healthcare. It's EXP's healthcare program. They're out there in the lobby. Margot's there. Everybody who sees them says 100, 200, 300 a month on their healthcare. My wife and I save $2,000 a month, $24,000 a year. We can pretty much go to any doctor anywhere in the world, anytime. It is phenomenal health care. Go talk to Margot, make an appointment. I only did it because everyone kept bugging me. Hey, do you have Clearwater? And I didn't, right? Last thing you want to change is your life insurance, your auto insurance, your health care. Like, I'd rather shoot myself in the face. But, right? But I'm like, okay, so what I do, I delegate it. Honey, you should talk to Clearwater. You're going to love talking to Margot. She did. We literally have better health care, vision, dental. They have pet care, like legit pet care. You think, what's that for? My mom would operate on her dog before my dad. Like seriously, my dad's like, okay, the dog's done. We're just going to put it out with the trash. I mean, look at that thing. It's barely breathing. And my mom's like, oh no, we will spend thousands and thousands and thousands to give it a few more pumps, a few more months, right? Pet care's real, and it's here. So Vision Dental, go see Margot in the lobby, Clearwater. If you don't do it this week, do it next week. Check him out. Okay, our next speaker has become a great friend of mine. I've known him for 20 years. He was one of the most legendary Keller Williams franchise owners of all time ever in North America. He built 10 from the ground floor up. One of them became the most profitable Keller Williams of all time, Roseville, California, making more money than Austin, Texas in 2009 and 10. He built that baby. I inherited it, and I got to go on stage and collect his awards. It was awesome. Brent, Gove, big stud. Look at that office. And he's an ultra athlete and has some pretty cool background there. And he's a thought leader at EXP and a dear friend of mine, and he's coming up on being 1,000 in his organization in a minute. Help me welcome Mr. Don Yoakum, everybody.
So James and Brent asked me to tell my story. I'm pretty sure that's because they think it'll be entertaining. My intention is to make it so that I can help you to avoid a few of the potholes that I have fallen in, and maybe also have some successes that you wouldn't otherwise. So I will begin my story. And I did not start in Compton like Rosie, but I did start in the red light district of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And my story almost ended before it began, because when I got to Fort Lauderdale, I was at the ripe old age of 16 years old. I had persuaded my dad to let me pursue a career in windsurfing and convinced him that I had to be in Florida to do that. And he allowed it. The problem was I could only afford a place in the red light district of Fort Lauderdale. And when I got there, I got a job at Publix supermarket. And yeah, yay Publix. So I quickly realized, though, that I was not going to make enough money to provide for myself, because I was on my own at 16. And so one night on the weekend, by the way, Publix is not allowed to work you past 10 o'clock during a school day, okay? But on the weekend, they can. So I stayed. I asked if I could be one of the stock boys. And they said, sure. I made a couple extra dollars an hour for doing that. And so that night on the weekend, I left Publix at about 1:30. And someone started stalking me. And so that night, I ended up having to run for my life, which was pretty terrifying for a 16-year-old kid. I did live through that experience. When I got to my room, I had a decision. Was I going to call my dad and say, hey, this is too hard. I just don't know if I can do this. And actually, it was an easy decision because I did not have a phone. Which also, by the way, meant that I could not call 911 if this stalker did, in fact, figure out where I had run to. And by the way, I didn't have hot water. You guys out there that think you're cool because you're taking these cold showers, I was decades ahead of you. But I would say that the pinnacle of my experience in that lovely little studio was one day I'm staring myself in the mirror. It's morning, I'm preparing to go to school, and I am combing my hair with a fork. I couldn't afford a comb, okay? And that is the moment that I realized I was going to be a champion. And because I thought, there's just nobody that's going to put up with this bullshit, okay? This is tough, right? And I did go on to be a 3-time national champion in windsurfing. Thank you. I got onto the Olympic team, and that's where I'll wrap up my athletic part of this story. So in 1983, we were preparing for the Olympics. There were 8 of us on the U.S. team. I was easily our leading candidate at that time. And in the 2 high wind races, I beat everyone in the world. All of the people that won all the medals at the Olympics in '84, in those 2 high wind races that we had, I destroyed them. But what we learned in Long Beach, which was the site of the Olympic venue, was that it was probably going to be light air. And I was not going to be the best candidate to represent our country. And so I made the decision to turn professional. And the reason why that was a good decision for me at that time was because there was a wind minimum, so we only raced in heavy air, which played to my strengths. And I got invited to Jack O'Neill's home right after this event, right? And I'm going to announce to Jack, I don't know if you guys know Jack O'Neill, but he's the guy with the patch on his eye, and you can picture the scene. We're at his home, and which is on a cliff in Santa Cruz. And I'm thinking, Jack's going to be excited for me. And I was a sponsored athlete. I was being paid to wear their wetsuits. And so we had a lovely dinner, by the way. And the next morning, Sean O'Neill took me to breakfast. And she says, hey, Don, we just love you and wish you all the best in your professional career. And you can, of course, wear all the O'Neill wetsuits you want for the rest of your life. And you can drive the RX-7 when you're in town. But we're not going to pay you anymore. And I'm thinking to myself, now, wait a second. I just turned professional. Didn't you get that part about me going pro? Okay, well, what had happened was I had gone from being the leading candidate to go to the Olympics, and Jack wanted me wearing his little vest on the Olympic venue, to being the 3rd best person on their team on the World Cup circuit. Okay, how do you guys feel when you're the 2nd best listing agent? Let alone the 3rd, okay? So anyway, that was the beginning of my pro career. I did end up going on to win 1 world title, but I basically became a professional beach bum, and by 1990, my dad persuaded me to come down to Long Beach to start real estate. He was having a lot of success, and he agreed to mentor me, and I took him up on that. And so my first full year in real estate was 1990. I closed 51 deals. I was at RE/MAX, like a lot of us. And man, it was great. Loved the experience there. And I went on to, as Brent said, I went on to be a Keller Williams team leader in Roseville, built that office, and took it from 10 to 184 agents in 27 months, and actually then built 9 more Keller Williams franchises, 2 of them with Gene Frederick, the legend. We did Cupertino and Palo Alto together. And then I made a really bad decision. I decided that after all that success, that what I ought to do is purchase 21 Keller Williams franchises. And it was 2006, by the way. Yeah. So, can you imagine where this graph goes after this?
It went to Levi's house.
You know, Levi, I did have a crapper in that studio. Okay? Anyway, yeah, that didn't go well. 14 of those 21 franchises needed turning around. They would not have even qualified to be a franchise if they were making an application. So I ended up closing 6, selling 5 below my basis. We did get that portfolio back to profitability, but it was a pretty devastating experience. And when I was at the bottom, I stayed at the bottom for a bit. Now, if you were a Facebook friend of mine during this period of time, you would have seen beautiful sunrises and beautiful sunsets, mountain scenes, bike rides. But I was asking myself, am I worth more to my family than the $500,000 life insurance policy? Okay? Thankfully, I said yes. So I did start grinding my way back. First as a coach, you know, one of the things that I encourage you to do if you find yourself in a place like me is to just move into contribution, try to make a difference for other people, and that will lift you, okay? Well, the story then goes to Brent Gove, who we all know and love. In 2016, Brent came to me and said, Don, will you take a look at this, you know, because we had been a team leader in the same market center. I know you know all this stuff about brokerages. And I came back to Brent and I said, Brent, you know, I know you're going to be successful, okay? But it seems a little bit too good to be true, okay? And I didn't appreciate the power of how Glenn had designed the model such that we were receiving 50% of the company dollar, and how that would adjust the model as we went and create a sustainability. And the last thing I wanted to do was to go bust my ass again and have this thing go tits up, right? And so that wasn't appropriate. So Randy Bird, my man Randy Bird, calls me in late 2018, and he says, hey, Don, you know, have you been taking a look at what's going on with EXP? And I had taken a job, by the way, as a regional VP for a lender, and I wasn't watching it that closely. But by the way, when I turned Brent down, you know what he did? He just loved on me. Okay, good lesson for all of us. So Randy calls, though, and I say, well, okay, so Randy, you know, how's Brent doing? He goes, well, he's making over $100,000 a month. And I'm just like, oh, shit. Sweetie, we are going to have to look at that EXP thing again. And so I did, And I did begin to understand the genius of this business model, and it really is genius. So thank you, Glenn. I mean, what Glenn has essentially done for us is given us the benefits of brokerage ownership without broker liability and capital risk, and given us a model that scales, baby. I mean, I've never seen anything that scales like this. Okay, so I want to give you some how-tos. Tony Robbins told us there's 3 things you need to do to succeed in business. Number 1, you need to identify your ideal client. I believe that's an icon-level producer. Ideally one that understands leverage, but in fact, if they don't, that could be a tremendous value that you bring to them, is to understand how they can take from being a tremendous individual producer to building a team, to building a regional, national, and eventually international sales organization. And then he said, under promise, over deliver. In fact, I believe that you'll find that your referrals will correspond to the amount that you over deliver on your promise. Now, I'm going to have people that are going to say, oh, yeah, but not everybody's an icon. Okay, but they can become one, or they can just recruit one. Okay? But if you question my logic on this, I refer you to Annie Duke's book, Thinking in Bets. And I believe that you will find if you bet on an icon producer, you will be feeling good about the outcome. Now, if you're into multiplication as opposed to addition, I refer you to this book by Grant Cardone, 10X. If you can find yourself an icon producer, ideally with a production team, they have learned the power of leverage, and they've been operating with a 3-foot lever. You're now handing them a 30-foot lever. Okay? There's nothing like this. So what I want you to consider is that you've been given this tremendous opportunity. You're going to be the leader of your own organization. What is the pace that you are going to set for your team? And the way that I recommend you do it is by doing just 2 contacts a day, 10 a week, 40 a month. Okay? 2, 10, 40. That is going to enable you in 2 years' time to have a business foundation of 20, in my case, icons, but 24 agents. And by the way, I love recruiting all agents. All agents can become icons, okay? Not everyone will, but we'll still love on them. But what will happen in the process of you hiring those 20 people is they're going to build your organization in that same 2-year period of time to 150 plus. You will now have a 6-figure recurring income. 3 years from that day, you're going to have an organization of 500. You're going to have a $250,000 recurring income, and you're going to be able to leave real estate and provide for your family in the fashion that they've grown accustomed to. That's the power of this model. If anybody questions the value of your time, I would have you do some math. You had to make 20 hires to get those 500 people. Those 500 people will create a recurring income of roughly $400,000. Recurring income is worth about 10 times its annualized amount. So that's $4 million. If you take that $4 million and you divide it by those 20 hires, it's $200,000 per hire. It will take you 20 hours of work to get an icon on average. That's one of those stacks of bills. You're going to be making $10,000 an hour. So that's the pace I encourage you to set. And so I'm going to summarize my talk by just asking you to lay the foundation of your business in the strongest possible way with the highest quality people. Follow a 2-10-40 approach. Let the events, that's one of Brent's great secrets, let the events do the heavy lifting. And match the energy of your biggest leaders. That'll get you there. And remember that the speed of the leader will determine the pace of the pack. Thank you.